What's going on, everyone? Today I want to talk about what it's like to live as the ultra wealthy. And so, hi, my name is Alex, owner of Allen Prestige Labs, Gym Launch, and a number of other portfolio companies. We did 120 plus million in the last 4 years and growing. And I've learned a lot of lessons that I want to share some of those with you. And so one of the things is kind of understanding how the ultra wealthy live. And I want to talk about some stuff that no one, I feel like no one talks about. And it's something my dad used to tell me when I was growing up. He said, never be impressed by money. And he used to say that so many times when I was growing up, and I didn't really get it as much, but he was so big on it. I was like, hey, look at that guy, he's so rich. And he was just like, don't be impressed by money. And it's really kind of stuck with me. And so what I want to do is kind of show you some transparent things so that you can hopefully not be impressed by money. So it's really easy to look ultra wealthy. All right, so I'm going to show you some of the things that you see on Instagram and some of the things that you see around. And I'm going to break it down for you money-wise so that hopefully it stops impressing you. All right? So we're going to talk about private jets. We're going to talk about, and you know what I'll do? At the end, I'll tell you which one I think is worth it. All right? So you got private jets. Let's say you've got an exotic car. Okay? Let's say, what else you got? You probably want a penthouse, right? Want a penthouse. What else do we have on our dreams list? All right? We got penthouse. Let's say you want really nice clothes, right? You want like really expensive clothes. All right, and then let's say fancy restaurants. All right, sweet. Let's walk through it. So this comes down to like, if you're like, man, I really, my dream lifestyle, and I think this is a useful exercise for anyone to go through if you haven't already defined this stuff. But let's say that you travel 6 times a year, so every 2 months. All right, you go somewhere there and back. Average travel, at least in the U.S., is gonna be 2 hours. So if you 2-hour flight 6 times a year, all right, it's there and back, which is 4 hours. 4 hours of flying 6 times a year total, which is 24 hours, all right? That's 24 hours. The reason I'm defining this by hours is because private jets get priced per hour. And if you're curious how much it costs, if you go through a service, you can usually get it for about $4,000 an hour, okay? So people don't know this. That's how much it costs, all right? So that's about $100,000 a year. Wait. Flying private is $100,000 a year? I thought you had to be a super duper millionaire. No, not really. It's $100 grand a year. Now, do I think that's really expensive for flights? When the alternative to that is for 6 flights could be, maybe, if you did first class, you'd be maybe spending $6 grand, At worst, if you did it last minute, you'd spend like 10 grand. So 10 times the price for an alternative? Well, that's the alternative price. All right, consider it. The next one, exotic cars, all right? So I'll give you a range here, but you can pretty much get a really nice car for $1,000 a month, like a very, very, very nice car. If you want like a Rolls Royce, one of the most expensive cars, and you were leasing it, you would spend, $4,500 a month, all right? So that's $4,000 a month, which is about $50,000 a year, right? All right, next one. Penthouse. So this kind of depends on, like, unless you're in a major city, but if you're not in a major city, which is what most of the IG influencers will try and influence you with, you can get a really nice place for $5,000 a month in just about every market that's not New York, LA, it's like maybe Miami, and sometimes even the nice place in Miami is like 10 grand a month, right? But you know what? Let's level up. Let's live a little bit. So we'll say 10,000 a month. All right, really, really, really nice place. All right, so that's 120K a year. All right, and then finally, expensive clothes, believe it or not, are some of the cheapest things that are out there because, you buy your Gucci belt, which is $500. You buy your Gucci shoes, which are another $600. And then, you want to buy a handful of $100 t-shirts, okay. So, you're spending what, like $3,000 a year, on clothes, which is not nearly as much as you'd think, right? And then fancy restaurants, let's say you go out to date night once a week and you drop $400 on a really nice dinner, really, really nice dinner. We're living it up here, right? So it's $1,600 a month times 12. I don't want to do the math there. Let's say it's 20K, all right? So this lifestyle, and this is the, we're talking the ultra wealthy lifestyle. This isn't just like, oh, I'm a millionaire. This is like I'm a super duper wealthy person, right? Look at all this stuff. We've got Lamborghinis, penthouses. We're only wearing designer clothes. We travel with private jets. we go to fancy restaurants, we do all of that stuff. How much does it actually cost, right? It costs 100 grand, 150, 270, about 300 grand a year, all right? 300 grand a year. So that's it. That's the dream number. And I have so many people who are like, I need to make $1 zillion, right? Well, after taxes, you need to make 300 grand. So you're looking at 500-ish thousand a year, 550 is what you need to make. And that is that's top 1%. But this is so stupid. As someone who literally has done all of these things, let me give you some insight into some of the stuff that I've discovered. One, flying private is actually really nice. But it's wildly expensive, and I still feel guilty for it. Exotic car, definitely not worth it. I have two, and they're so not worth it at all. Like, seriously, not worth it at all. The incremental enjoyment that I get compared to driving like an old Prius or a pickup truck is inconsequential. If anything, you get used to it within like a week or two. And honestly, the only reason I got this is because I was on a podcast with Brad Lee, if you guys know him. And he was like, dude, you're so cheap. He's like, just go, just get the car. Because my wife and I split a car until not that long ago. And he was like, dude, you make so much money. Just go get the darn car. So I was like, all right, I won't be a cheap ass. And so I got the car, and now I totally regret it. But, it is what it is. So hopefully you can learn from that mistake. That being said, what I'm going to do is also I'll walk through percentage of income. Like, for perspective, if I can do all of this stuff off of 1 week's income, what do you do the next week, right? And so that's why increasing your income is so important, because all of this stuff's actually really easy to achieve. And so that's why I don't think you should be like taking huge advice from people, because getting a business to do $80,000 a month and taking home 40 pretty much just affords you this lifestyle. And that's it. Like, now mind you, knock out private jet flying and make a reasonable penthouse instead of a $10,000 a month penthouse, which is a really nice place, right? Then just like that, we took out half the cost of this lifestyle. So now we're down to $150,000, right? It's like, okay, well then I could still look like a super, and still have my exotic car, still have expensive clothes, still eat at fancy restaurants, and that's on 150 grand a year, right? And so my biggest takeaways here are that I hope people take away is, like, the people who have the most money, honestly, all of this stuff is a very, very small percentage of their income. And so don't let this be the reason that you listen to someone, because there are people who live like this, and that's 100% of their income. And those are people you should not listen to for advice on money, right? Like, in my opinion, the only reason you should ever get to this part is when you're living. This is less than 10% of what you make. That's my opinion. Less than 10% of what you make, you save 90%. All right. And so overall, that's my big message, is that I have done all of these things. I am not currently wearing fancy clothes. I'm wearing jean shorts and a t-shirt that my aunt gave me for Christmas. Fancy restaurants. This is something that I do with Layla, and I actually feel like I get a good return on our date night, but not on the fact that it's a fancy restaurant. I enjoy Applebee's, Cheesecake Factory, BJ's, and Chili's, and Chipotle, honestly, just as much as I enjoy the fancy restaurant. I think the value of the fancy restaurant is that you dress up more so than the actual food and experience. And I've had the $500 steaks and all that stuff, and honestly, like, a really good double meat Chipotle bowl, hard to beat. Fajitas and chips at Chili's, hard to beat. Cheesecake Factory cheesecake, hard to beat. Pizookie at BJ's, no one has anything on their desserts, right? And so what's interesting is that having now done these exotic things, especially like cars and experiences, you'd be surprised that a lot of times I think the best quality, having now tasted all of these things, the best quality comes from the stuff that tends to be the biggest mass market, because they do the most product testing. And so recently I rented a Chevy Suburban. We were traveling somewhere, and the interface was so much easier to deal with than my Bentley's interface. It was so simple. I plugged my phone in. It worked automatically. It was just like, it was such a dream compared to this thing that's a $350,000 car, because they only make, a handful of them. So they don't have nearly the product testing, and they put all these gizmos in it that are impossible to figure out how to use. And so don't don't be persuaded by this stuff. All right, try. This is just my 2 cents. You can take whatever you want from it, but this has just been my experience with all of these things. Restaurants, I like the cheaper ones better. Expensive clothes, clothes I get nothing from. So personally, I think I have some shirts that are awesome, but the mass majority of them are less than $30. The penthouse thing, I don't think you should spend a lot of money on where you live. Personally, I think if you look at your primary residence as an investment, if you can, and live in something that would be an investment income type property, then I think it makes sense. Like the places that really make sense is like if you can live in a duplex and rent out the other spot, you live for free and you're appreciating the assets you have. That stuff makes a lot of sense to me. And you have to figure out what your trade-offs are. But if this is the absolute ultra wealthy, lifestyle, do you know what ultra wealthy is? Because I'll tell you what it is right now. It's 30 million or more, 30 million to a billion in investable assets. Well, if you have $30 million in investable assets, that's the bottom range of ultra high net worth, then if you're gaining even 10% a year, you're making $3 million a year, right, on your money, just your money making money. And so just your passive income is 10 times greater than what it costs to live this way. And so in that instance, it kind of makes sense, right? Or it's like if you want to do it, do it. But I'll tell you this, of the people that I know who are ultra wealthy, not kind of wealthy, not high net worth, which is 5 to 30, or just, or millionaire, right, which is 1 to 5. The people who have that stuff, who are the highest that I know, almost all of them, I've had these conversations with them, have come to the same conclusion, which is almost none of this stuff is worth it. And so you get there, you try the fruit, and you realize this is just not worth it. So if I can hopefully save somebody a couple $100,000 who does get there, then try and avoid this stuff. That's my 2 cents. So that's what I have for you. If you've never experienced this stuff or don't know how much it costs, this is how much this stuff costs in the real world. I do think you should spend less than, if you can, less than 10% of what you make. Because if you can spend less than 10% of what you make, then it means that honestly within 2 to 5 years you can live completely free of anything, because your wealth is a ratio between your expenses and your income. It is not a number. That's the thing everyone messes up. It's an expense. It's a ratio of income to expenses. That is what wealth is. And so if your income to expense ratio is 10 to 1, you are very wealthy. So whether you live on $30,000 a year and you make $300,000 a year, that is a very wealthy person. They're extremely, extremely well set up. They have no stress because they have so much more than they need. And so that's what I think the key comes down to, is having so much more than you need. And the happiness equation, if you guys don't know what it actually is, it's not when I get X, I will be happy. That's not the right one. The right one is haves over wants. And if you can get your wants to 0, then it doesn't matter what you have on top, it equals infinity. And so as much as everyone likes to chase the top number to compensate for the fact that they want these things, if you can simply decrease the desire, you will increase the abundance in your life, and by extension, your income to expense ratio, which is what will build your wealth and give you the freedom you want. So anyways, this has been a little experience of mine that I hope you find valuable, and hopefully you don't have to make some of these lovely mistakes that I have. Keep being awesome, lots of love, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye.